Joining us tonight, I'm Naja Sherman.
And I'm Dan Schaefer. Today, the top law enforcement officers in Huntsville, Madison, and Madison County addressed the public after a chaotic scene last night following hours of peaceful protesting.
Here's what they had to say during the nearly 40-minute briefing, touching on race relations, arrests, and what they're doing to keep officers and protesters safe.
Let me say this about Mr. Burnett and NAACP. This was not his group. It was not. It was, you could tell it was a fine line there between the people that was in that park and the people that came up on that square. After that permit was over with, we had the right to disband it. We allowed them another 90 minutes, okay? Once we give that order, we wanted to make that order before it became dark because we knew what they had in place. We knew what they were trying to do as far as putting objects out there to hurt our town, to hurt our downtown area, to hurt all of our buildings and our restaurants and our business owners.
We started out, all of our officers were in the courthouse. You didn't see any of them. And then all of a sudden we brought them out, they still didn't change their mind. We brought the troopers out, they still didn't change their mind. I mean, how many warnings do you give before you lose your sunset? I had 30 minutes of daylight left to clear downtown Huntsville. That was our own. We knew at night it changed, the whole atmosphere changed. So after 90 minutes and you're looking at these citizens face to face and they put on masks.
You know, they feed off the people that get closer. They want to get closer. And I'm telling you, I'm not letting them take our courthouse.
Especially after 6:30, we kind of thought maybe there would be a small group like Monday of 100 or so, and there wasn't. I saw about 4 or 5 times that number what we had Monday.
We're trying to negotiate with them. Look, guys, it's time to go. We're going to do this another day. And then they make us do our job. You know, none of us wanted to go out there and do our job like we did last night, but we have to do our job. We have to affect what we do as law enforcement.
The NAACP demonstrators went home, and you have the video footage on what was left. We're not going to tolerate unlawful behavior after sunset in downtown Huntsville. You're not going to burn our Huntsville down.
Now we want to bring in Way 31 Sydney Martin. She was at that briefing this morning and was in downtown last night as that situation escalated.
And Sydney, your coverage was extensive. I mean, you started at Big Spring Park earlier in the afternoon, followed everyone to the courthouse. In your opinion, and based on what you saw last night, did anything out of this news conference surprise you?
Well, Dan and Naja, there were a couple things that actually surprised me. The first thing, we learned not one officer, but 2 officers were injured. One had some cuts on the back of his head. The other officer was wearing a helmet and had stuff thrown at him, hit against his head multiple times. They also told us that they were sweeping this courthouse area all day, and they found stuff hidden on the courthouse steps, actually, and they'd walk away after picking up items, come back an hour and a half later and find more potential weapons, which was definitely surprising. The third thing that probably surprised me, they told us they actually found a 3-year-old child all by themselves in Big Spring Park. A Huntsville police officer picked up that child and took it away from the protest area, which there was lots of, after all this protest, and there was lots of tear gas and other things being deployed, so obviously not a safe situation for a child to be in.
Not at all. Chief McMurray mentioned in that news conference that the protesters forced police to do their jobs. And of course, as you mentioned, that did include tear gas. It's been 24 hours now since that protest. You were exposed to that tear gas. How long did you feel the effects of it?
Dan, I would say it was probably about a good 5 minutes. I can tell you, everyone that I was with our station, which there was about 8 of us all together, we were coughing, tears literally coming out of our eyes. Our eyes were burning, hard to breathe, definitely not comfortable. I do want to make it clear that tear gas was not aimed at us whatsoever. We kind of got the effects of it with protesters nearby that they were trying to get to disperse, but it is definitely something that is not comfortable. But as police said, it's supposed to push people back and away, and I can tell you it really does work doing that because we moved quickly away. Live in Huntsville, Sydney Martin, Way 31 News.
And Sydney, we heard you mention yesterday, and police also verified that they gave the protesters multiple verbal warnings, but was there anything in particular that you saw that warranted or that incited them to unleash the gas into the crowd?
Well, we were seeing people throwing things. There was water bottles that had been frozen that had ice. There were rocks. I know they'd picked up some of the flower beds around the square that had rocks in them. They really said, though, they begged people for about 90 minutes to please leave, please go home. And these people, some of them just kneeled down. They did not move. And that's when they brought these officers out in full body gear, head to toe. And they had to start deploying other methods to try to get them to leave the downtown area because law enforcement could not leave a group of hundreds of people here and patrol the city. It just really, they said, was not safe to leave a group of that many people downtown. And any more than 5 people that have gathered, they are lawfully allowed to ask to leave an area. Dan, Naja.
Any information about where these guys came from? The mayor said they were outside agitators that were brought in.
Well, I can tell you that we learned from Huntsville police today that they were working with the Fusion Center down in Montgomery. It's very high-tech technology they were using. They were actually monitoring our camera feeds, all of the local news. They were monitoring Facebook Lives, really watching everything that they could. They had plainclothes officers out there. And I can tell you, they said they saw a lot of license plates from Georgia, Tennessee, surrounding states. They also said that they learned from other law enforcement who was watching the feed that there were people here from Virginia and people who had warrants out for their arrest. They said that it was clear to them from the intelligence that they received and the technology that they were able to use that not all the people here last night were from Huntsville and that they'd actually come in to maybe try to incite some of this because they made it clear NAACP's protest was peaceful. The people that were not peaceful were people from other areas trying to get our area all riled up.
With 31 Sydney Martin reporting live from downtown. Sydney, thank you so much for your coverage.